G'day on a beautiful morning here in Mexico City, the day after the Mexican Grand Prix. And what have I got to report on this behind the scenes video? Well, there was a lot of chat about respect in the paddock. You might have read the comments by Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. Well, I'll go through that a little later in this video. But coming up next, all the behind the scenes action. There was plenty going on at the F1 track here in Mexico City on the weekend, which is about 11 kilometres from where I'm standing in the centre of the city. I'm staying here at the Hyatt, which is just behind me, and I love the atmosphere there because every Thursday and Friday night there's probably about 50 to 100 people waiting for those drivers that are staying at that hotel to return. And they're filed up in an orderly line and the drivers walk past them and sign autographs and pose for selfies. A lot of people ask me, where can we see the drivers at the track? If you don't have paddock access, they normally drive in through gate 7 and they will go underneath the track and park outside the swipe gate. So if you have a paddock club ticket, you have access to that area. Let's kick it off on Thursday. Daniel Ricciardo came in wearing a Day of the Dead mask. A fan had given it to him on the previous evening at dinner and he decided he'd wear it into the track. And later on in the morning, he played table tennis with Timo Glock for a period. Well, not a full-size table as you can see here. It's a mini table tennis table. IndyCar driver Pato O'Ward. Pato is short for Patricio. He's Mexican, Irish, American. Got a bit in him, hasn't he? But he was there on Wednesday doing some ambassadorial duties for McLaren. He'll be driving in Abu Dhabi for FP1. The most likeable young driver I've ever met. He's just full of beans, and he came out into the pit lane on, what was it, Thursday afternoon, where the pit walk was going on, and he had the crowd in raptures. But the star of the weekend was, of course, Sergio Perez. And throughout the commentary, which was mostly around the track in Spanish, all I would hear was blah, 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 Checo Perez, blah, 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 Checo Perez. They love him here. And if you are a fan of Checo, here's good news. You could win this signed print. It's A3 in size. All you have to do is be subscribed to my YouTube channel and comment on this video. And then at 10 a.m. on Monday the 7th of November, Las Vegas time, I will reply to just one of those comments saying send me your email address or your Instagram handle, and then it's up to you to do that to claim your prize. And you'll have 7 days. So remember, check back on the 7th of November after you've commented and subscribed to my channel. Moving on to Friday now, I had to laugh. Poor Toto Wolff got out of his car and was guided into the wrong entrance. So he went in amongst all these paddock club people. He was besieged by fans, got to the point where he hoped to get through to the swipe gates. It was blocked. Had to walk back through them. But he was very good, stopped and signed autographs on the way down this walkway here. On Friday, I went up into the grandstand of the stadium, and it's an electric atmosphere there. The fans are so passionate, and it's a great theatre where the noise just reverberates. And I took 7 individual pictures to make up this panorama shot, which would look great on your wall. If you go to ProStar Pics and search panorama, you'll find this picture and you can actually get it blown up virtually as big as you want. FP1 saw a few reserve drivers out. We had Nick De Vries looking very slick in his black Mercedes gear. Liam Lawson was sitting in for Yuki Tsunoda in his Alpha Tauri. Ended prematurely when out on track. He had to stop, and then his brakes overheated and there was smoke coming out. Poor Liam, he didn't know what to do, and there was no one obviously offering any help. So he stood and looked around, jumped out, and eventually a fire marshal turned up with an extinguisher. And the third young driver out on track was Jack Doohan, son of Mick Doohan. And Jack's in line for that seat at Williams if Logan Sargent doesn't get the required points. So that last F2 race of the year in Abu Dhabi could be very interesting, with Logan and Jack racing against each other. I'll be out there to shoot the start and the end of that one, I'm certain. I did a meet and greet with about 50 F1 fans after that session. I want to thank those people for turning up. It was a great opportunity to meet a few of you. Let's get back to this respect issue that was being widely reported in the media. As I mentioned earlier, Daniel and Lando both made public comments about it. I spoke to George Russell briefly. He too mentioned the fact that he'd noticed there was a drop in respect for the drivers. And how does that manifest? Well, let me give you a couple of examples. At one stage, Lando Norris was backed into a corner with about a dozen fans surrounding him. He had to make his own way out of that. There were a lot of people in the Mexico City paddock, and maybe there were too many, and it just is physically impossible for drivers to appease every single fan. And there's no doubt that Drive to Survive has increased the popularity of these drivers. Everyone sees them on television and suddenly they get close to them, and it becomes a surreal moment, and they get so excited that they perhaps just forget their manners. And I'll give you an example. It's not just Mexico City either. It was quite obvious here, but even in Austin I noticed Daniel Ricciardo talking to about 4 different people in an engaged conversation, and some girl just walked from about, I'm thinking 5 metres, shouting, "Daniel, Daniel," and straight up to him, oblivious that he was engaged in conversation. And I saw the same again with Pierre on the hospitality suite deck here this weekend, where a young fella just walked up while Pierre was talking to a person, grabbed him by the shoulder and turned him around and said, "Can I please have an autograph?" Now, I don't think that happens in real life. You just don't do that. You bide your time and you wait. Another person at a team told me that their driver was running to an appointment that he had in the paddock, and he was late for it. And somebody ran in front of him the whole way down, begging this driver to stop, which he didn't have time to do. And when he didn't stop, he was abused for not doing so. And I think people are just forgetting their manners in the pure excitement of the moment. There's no doubt that F1 is going to have a look at this issue and work out what the solution may be. And in fact, when the drivers came in on Thursday and Friday morning, they were besieged by people just outside the swipes. But on Friday afternoon, they'd put up a fence which gave the drivers a clear passageway to walk down, and that solved the problem. Those drivers that had time stopped. Those that didn't were able to walk through. And it's not just fans who are behaving unruly. I witnessed one cameraman pulling a woman out of his shot. I'll be very interested to see what happens in Sao Paulo. Certainly the drivers are now looking at taking back entrances and getting more security inside the paddock so that they can go about their day-to-day duties. After all, they're there to work. That's their job. On Saturday, quali day, Alex Albon got himself a gift from a mad Williams fan here. Lando Norris was quickly through the paddock, but he did stop for, I'm probably guessing, half a minute to sign this mini helmet for a young fan. I was out in the stadium on Saturday shooting, and I noticed these yellow boxes up on the fence. Did some research. These are made by a company called Zenatel, and they allow the marshals to speak to other marshals instantly, and also race control. Nifty piece of machinery. Then later in the afternoon I saw Tiffany Cromwell, Valtteri's girlfriend, and she said, "Oh, Valtteri's got something he wants to show you." So I popped into the hospitality suite, and look at these hand-painted shoes from some of Valtteri's favourite photographs. It's a beautiful piece of art, and there is only one pair in existence, and the 2 shoes are completely different. Let's go to race day now. And Lewis's fashion, how did he go over the 4 days? You be the judge. He did a little fashion shoot out the back of the garage too on one of the days, which he often does with his photographer. But they have to find a quiet place, and oftentimes that's not easy. We had Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda kicking a football around with this gentleman. He's a French footballer who plays for one of the Mexican clubs at the moment. He was a guest of AlphaTauri's for the weekend. It's fair to say that the drivers' parade was insane because all of the drivers drove through the stadium. We were allowed in there to stand and shoot from the painted areas, and the crowd were absolutely on fire. Every team cheered. I did notice some boos for Lewis when he came around, which I thought was a bit unfair. But the biggest cheer of all was for Sergio Perez, who's seen here with his hand on his heart, acknowledging the enormous support from his fans. I shot the start from the platform up at turn 1, but prior to that, I took a whole lot of crowd shots, and there were some fantastically excited people in those stands. So thank you for your enthusiasm. And in the stadium, we had the crowd separated with green t-shirts, white t-shirts and red t-shirts, of course, the colours of the Mexican flag. I've mentioned in past videos that this race is a little unusual with the Parc Ferme because it's not held in pit lane, it's held inside the Foro Sol. And once the 3 cars park up, we're allowed to head out behind them. And that's where I shot this pic of Sergio's dad and his sister Paola, who were having a marvellous time there. And in fact, all through the weekend they were very prominent, along with mum and wife and kids in the paddock with Red Bull. And is this the most spectacular podium on our calendar? Yeah, I think it is. The car rises up through the stage, the drivers come up on a riser as well, and at some point the crowd are allowed onto the track and they stream into the stadium to witness the goings-on. And following the champagne spraying, which is always a highlight, we had DJ Martin Garrix treating us to some tunes. This race is one of the highlights of the year, and while there are a few hiccups with those fans, as we mentioned earlier on, I'm sure that'll be sorted. We'll be back here for another couple of years. I think they've got it until 2025. I must say the media centre is fantastic. The media canteen has some of the best food we get all year, and the gift from the race organiser this year was a ripper. Look at this. We had Mexican scotch, tequila, a vintage hat, hand sanitizer, more hand sanitizer, and a drink bottle. Having done my bit, it's now your turn to get online and purchase one of those great signed driver prints at kimellman.com. You'll also find merchandise, photo books, and wall art. I noticed some of you haven't subscribed yet. Do so. Because remember, you can win that signed Sergio Perez print if you sign and comment below on this video. You'll find all of my digital images at prostarpics.com, and for my best images live from the track all during the week, head to YouTube and search at Kim Illman. Thanks for watching.
And stay passionate, baby. Boom. Perdón, sorry.
No, you're right, you're right.
Sorry.
You're fine, mate, you're fine. Nice fella.